to ask too many questions from you. But if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me so that I can answer your question before we move on. But other than that, if anyone doesn't have any questions, I'm going to jump into it. Last week we spoke about internships, introduction to internships. What are internships? How, do you get an internship? What industries are hiring? What companies are hiring? Those kinds of things. And what do you need to get an internship? So today we're going to be talking about how to prepare for internships. So essentially, I'm going to be taking you through what you need to be thinking about when it's time to start applying for internships and things like that. So again, we're talking about preparing for internships. Cool. And this is the second part of a four-part series. So essentially through the month of October, because this is a hiring season, we're going to be talking about internships. Cool. So again, I said I'm going to jump right into it. A bunch of things we're going to discuss today. I have them outlined here. So we're going to go through each one by one. Um, but I'm just going to give a run through of it first. So you're a student, you need an internship. It's internship season. What do you need to know? Or what do you need to do to prepare for an internship? First, self-assessment. Second, identifying industries. Actually, you can just take a look at the slide because I'm going to go through each one of it. Um, Building a strong resume. We are not going to be looking at a resume today. We're going to be looking at that next week by God's grace. But I'm going to talk a little bit about it today. Cover letter, developing personal brand, talking to people, networking, so you can get, to know people that are actually, in the internship process, and then preparing for interviews and, coding challenges, like someone mentioned last week, coding challenges. And this is for computer science students. It can look different from this for other majors, but usually, more or less, most times internship application or preparation process looks like this for most majors. Cool. So self-assessment, that's the first thing we're going to talk about. So essentially, what your goal is during self-assessment, you want to know as a student, what year am I in, right? You can be a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. You want to know what exactly am I bringing as an intern to whatever company I want to work at, right? So the first thing you want to do is assess yourself. What is my skill level, right? What are those things that I know that I can actually bring to a company? Be it your coding skills, your problem solving skills. This one is important across the board. You know, just things that you think a company would be looking for. And a good way to do this is to comb through job descriptions, right? Around this time already, a lot of people have posted job descript job postings. There's a lot of job postings for interns right now. So sometimes you just want to go through those and comb them and see, okay, what are these people looking for? Oh, we're looking for someone that, a student or, sophomore, junior, or senior, or whatever, uh, has some experience in Python or whatever, right? Has some whatever else experience, has done some projects and things like that, right? You want to come through these things and see, okay, like these people, they say this is what you're looking for. What do I fit this description? And it's okay if you don't completely fit those descriptions, to be honest, because a lot of times people just list skills that they think they need. But when they're actually looking at resumes, they are going to be accepting, you know, people that, you know, people that demonstrate those skills and, people that don't completely match those criteria. But usually we want to have the basic requirements down. So part of self-assessment is knowing where you are on the skill, in the skill tree. And also another thing is what your technical skills look like. You've been learning for a while now, like what can you do? Right? Those kinds of things. So that's part of assessing yourself. Also, soft skills matter as well. Like how well can I communicate what I'm thinking to people, right? Um, People look at this during interviews. Part of even technical interviews, which, computer science again, part of what people look at is your communication skills. How do you relate to people? How do you fit into the company's, you know, structure, right? They look at these things. So yeah, soft skills, hard skills. Soft skills are your, communication, collaboration, things like that, work with people, etc., etc. Hard skills are like the technical things that you bring to the table, right? Am I able to solve this problem? Am I able to, write effective code or, do stuff effectively? What do I bring to the table technically? So you want to assess these things. And the reason why you're assessing yourself is you want to see, is there anything I can do to make my, application better, right? Maybe someone is looking for a C++, someone with C++ experience. Can I work on a project that shows that I understand the basics of C++? Or can I, have I done something in the past that I can include in my resume so that, because I know how to do this thing, right? You're assessing yourself. You're like, oh, I've done this thing before, but I need to put this on my resume because I've assessed myself. I can do this thing. I put it on my resume so people can see, right? So you just want to look at these things, gather, come through again, come through applications, job postings rather, and then see what you can actually do, uh, both soft skills and hard skills, and then from that you can gather stuff together and start putting together some form of resume. And that's what I'm just going to talk about when it comes to self-assessment. So again, think about it, assess yourself. That's what self-assessment means. But anyways, second thing I'm going to talk about, identify industries and companies. Again, this is kind of part of self-assessment, but now you're assessing what the market looks like, right? You know, I'm a computer science major, I'm an engineering major, I'm a mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, whatever it is, right? You want to know what companies are hiring. I mentioned some last week, but you also want to do your research, right? Each person's major is different. So each person is studying something different. So things might look a little bit different for each person. So as a student, you want to know, given my major, what are the things people are hiring for? Who are those people that are hiring? What industries can I work in? What companies are out there? Should I apply to startups? Should I apply to big tech companies or big companies, big engineering companies, right? Or things like that. What are other things that influence where I can apply to? So I put this there because as international students, which is what I was when I was looking for internships, right? You can't apply to every company because not every company sponsors uh work permit for international students. So even more so, like after you graduate, some companies don't sponsor work visas. So I don't know, I mean, international students are here, but that's something you want to keep in mind, right? So that's a factor that can influence what companies you can apply to. Sometimes, even these companies say, okay, like they don't sponsor, but sometimes they do sponsor. So you want to ask people that have applied to those companies before, hopefully maybe alumni or your seniors in school. You want to know, okay, has anyone ever worked with this company? And, what's their sponsorship policy? Other things that can also influence where you can apply to. Are they looking for only juniors? Because there was an internship I was going to apply to when I was in my freshman year then, and then they were like, "Oh no, we're only looking for juniors." So there's some people that put those requirements. Most times, at least for software engineering internships, like you can start applying as a freshman, as long as you pass the interviews, you're good to go. But some people have a hard limit or hard, requirement. So you want to know those as well. Some people have soft requirements, they say they want juniors, but then they still accept not juniors, sophomores or freshmen even. So you kind of want to know each company that you're applying to see if you can actually apply uh, and what their policies are. Also, some companies have affiliation with schools, right? Um, they can say, "Oh, we always go to this school to recruit." Companies have target schools that they recruit from. They usually will go out to those schools and do career fairs, do on-campus interviews. A lot of companies do on-campus interviews. They just come, instead of you going to do like 5 rounds of interviews in the normal process, they just come to the campus and within one day, they just interview you maybe 2, 3 times. And then they actually give you an offer on the spot. So these are some things you want to look out for. If your school has a good career services office, you also want to, check in with them and say, okay, what companies are hiring? What companies are you guys talking to, right? Also, your department, the head of your department, whoever is in charge of your department should know some of these things. So you want to ask them, what companies are coming, what companies do we have affiliations with? What companies recruit directly from campus without having to even interview for them at all. You know, in the normal interview process, you still have to interview, but you know, usually the interview process is accelerated. So you want to identify this kind of companies and apply to them as soon as you can. Most people get offers directly on campus. It doesn't have to be, you know, the whole process. So please look out for those. Also, companies do career fairs. This one is very common, even if your school is not like a school where they do on-campus interviews. People still come to do career fair, right? They bring engineers to talk to you. They bring recruiters to talk to you. And, this is a very good way by which companies find interns. Again, I think I mentioned this last week. Recruiting is very expensive, so these people are actually looking for people to work with them. So it's in your best interest to, you know, also show the same level of enthusiasm when it comes. So, I mean, if you're looking for an internship, of course. But yeah, again, find out which companies you can apply to, find out which ones are recruiting specifically for your school. Those ones are easier to, apply to or work with. And, you can do their interviews faster. What, schools are coming to campus to do career fair and things like that. Um, and so on. So keep those in mind as you do your applications so that you can make things faster essentially for yourself. Next is building a strong resume. I have a lot of things to say about this. Oops. But I'll keep some of them till next week because what I'm going to do next week, I'm going to bring my resume from, because I have every single version of, probably not the earlier ones, but I have almost every single version of my resumes. from freshman year until, right now. And again, like I said last week, I got, you know, internships every year when I was in school. So it might be helpful to see, what I put in those resumes. Um, so five, six things you want to keep in mind as you fill your resume. You want to think about your current academic standing. A lot of companies don't really care about this, but a lot of times also, people do care about your academic standing. If you have some terrible standing academically, it might be best to leave it off your resume. Even though, some companies will actually say, you should put your academic standing, your GPA on your resume. So in those cases, you actually want to, because they might not consider your application. But really, you want to consider, okay, right now, where am I academically, right? Usually, your resume we have your education, which is your school, right? And what's the relevant coursework, or what are the relevant coursework you've done, right? If you're applying for a comp sci internship, what are the, comp sci courses you've taken? If you're applying for a mechanical engineering internship, what are the mech courses you've taken? If you're applying for, I don't know, chemical engineering, whatever is engineering, architecture, name it. Architecture, they ask for portfolios, right? Things like that. But essentially, what projects have you worked on? What classes have you taken in this case, actually? What classes have you taken? And, what is your standing in those classes? So you want to put these things together, right? And present that to recruiters in such a way they're like, okay, we need someone that does Python, we need someone that does this, JavaScript, whatever. We can see from their coursework that this person actually has an experience working with this thing. This person actually has especially has worked with this thing before, and then they're like, okay, this is who we are looking for. We're going to hire them, right? This is exactly what recruiters are looking for. So you want to put these things out there. What are your skills, right? Sometimes, put soft skills on your resume, but really, for me, what usually ends up mattering is your hard skills, right? I mean, everyone will put communication on their resume. And I'm not saying no put that. Actually, scratch that. Put soft skills, but hard skills definitely. Like what languages do you know? What have you done? Like usually I like to put my strongest languages on my resume and tell them, how many years I've been working with this language. And I also want to put projects that demonstrates that I actually have worked in these languages and what, how strong that also demonstrate how strong I am in those languages. So for example, I say, oh, I'm strong with Python. I've been working with Python for 1 year or, 2 semesters, whatever, right? I back it up with a project and say, okay, I worked on this Pi game, whatever it is that, people do these days. Um, and then, this is what backs up what I have said about my experience in Python. So, they scan these things. Okay, you work with Python. I see a project that you did in Python. Makes sense. Makes sense. You seem to be credible, right? Something like that. What are your prior experiences, right? Maybe you've done an internship before. Put that on there, right? What tools did you work with during those internships? Put those tools on there, and then try to, in very short and concise manner, tell them, okay, this is what I worked on. This is what I specifically worked on because people, again, I'm going to talk about resume next week, but people fall into the trap of saying, oh, we worked on this, we worked on this. Oh, yeah, we know that, you people worked on this, but what did you specifically work on? Like, you are the one we're hiring. We are not hiring your whole team that worked on this. Like, oh, we worked on this project. Okay, but what did you work on? Right? You want to highlight these things. You can talk about the project in a broad way, but make sure to highlight what you specifically worked on because that's what people are looking for, right? I want to know what you worked on to determine if you're a good fit for the role I'm trying to hire you for. Um, Other activities. Some other activities are, coding challenges. I used to go to coding challenges pretty, I wouldn't say frequently, but at least one every year. Um, every, session, right? Um, but if you can go to more, go to more. Hackathons, I don't specifically like hackathons. In fact, I actually don't like hackathons at all. But yeah, if you like hackathons, go to hackathons. Um, if you don't like them, you can still go to hackathons. There's free food. So, but anyways, go to hackathons. Go to again. This is for computer science students. Sorry, I'm leaving you out, non-CS students. Whatever it is the equivalent of hackathons is to you, like maybe there's a design challenge that people are doing, please join that, right? You want to put your best foot forward. You want to show that number one, I'm actually enthusiastic about this profession I'm doing. And number two is that, I'm actually good at what I do, right? Even if you don't win, you have a project to demonstrate your skills, which is something that's very important. No one is looking for, oh, only people that win coding challenges or only people that win hackathons, right? But they're looking for what has this person demonstrated over time, right? And that's the whole point of, doing interviews, looking at people's resume. What have you done over time? And how would that fit into the role you've been hired for? Simple. And last one, when you're done with your resume, let's take a look at it. Like, if I was the hiring manager, it was the recruiter also, would I hire this person for this role that's in front of me? So you take a look at your resume, you take a look at the job description, you're like, okay, given this, will I hire myself? Like, that's a good test usually for um a finished resume. Also, I would say something that uh you also have to consider what year you're in because the expectations people have for freshmen are different from sophomore, different from junior, different from seniors. Actually, seniors usually don't apply to internships, but I may be wrong. But essentially, expectations are different usually. So when you're comparing your resume to the job description, be mindful of that. Don't say that, oh, they're asking for whatever. I don't have that yet. Does that mean I'm disqualified? No. As long as you're like, okay, this resume is the best foot I can be putting forward, and that's what I have. So I'm going to, send it in that way. But just make sure that after everything, this is your best foot. This is the best resume you can be putting forward, given the experiences you have, and given your academic standing, what you've done in the past, and your projects, your skills, experience, and challenges, coding challenges, and things like that that you've done. So essentially, review your resume. That's what I'm saying. Next, cover letter. I do not like cover letters, but some people make them mandatory. I think most people are not asking for cover letters today, but if they do, you still have to write one. So I have a section here for that. Um, when you're writing a cover letter, you don't need too many words. Usually, 1, 2 paragraphs are enough. You want it to be short, simple, very clear, concise, straight to the point. Um, you know, and this, and that. I've worked on this, and that. I think I'll be a good fit because of this, and that. And, you know, put some enthusiasm into it and submit that in. That's pretty much summary for cover letters. One point I would like to highlight here is this part, use action verbs. And also, actually, the next one, which is quantify achievements. People like to see how impactful what you did is. So if you're like, oh, I worked on this project, okay, what was the effect of the project? What, how effective, what did you do? What did your project do, right? You know, you want to show what it was. Also, like the action verbs part is just, oh, I did this again. I, took the lead on this. At this hackathon, I, did this and that, took the lead. Handled the design part, or handle this, handle that, and then, this was the position we took, or things like that, right? What did you do? How did what you do? Sorry, how did what you did matter in the project, right? In the grand scheme of things, how did that matter? Like, what was the effect of what you did essentially? And you want to show some enthusiasm, people want to see that you actually enjoy what you do. So they then just get someone that is not even interested in working in that profession in the first place. And it's okay to not be enthusiastic about what you do, but just be enthusiastic about something. Like, make sure what you're doing, you actually like what you're doing, right? Um, if you don't, then I don't know. That's a topic for another day. But yeah, summary, crafting a cover letter, concise, simple, short, straight to the point. Make sure you show them what you do, who you are, and what you've done, and quantify it. This There was X% of adoption, whatever it is. Just put some numbers in there. Uh, I mean, and I'm not asking you to manufacture numbers. If there are no numbers, there are no numbers. But just make sure that you help people understand what you've done and how impactful it was when you did it. That's essentially what I'm saying. Um, Personal brand. This one is controversial usually because a lot of times people post just because they want to post and not because they're actually interested. It's just like posting for visibility and things like that. Um, One thing I would say to that is just post what you're interested in. If you're not interested in posting anything, that's fine. But be present on LinkedIn. You won't imagine how many students don't even have a LinkedIn account. And then even aside from LinkedIn, right, there are websites that are specific to universities. Handshake, for example. And then there's this other one, they used to be called Jumpstart. I don't know what the current name is because I know they rebranded like 2 or 3 times. If anybody knows, you can just put it in chat. But these three websites were, what I mainly used when I was in school. And there were a lot of recruiters on those websites looking for students to recruit, right? So you want to make sure you're present on these platforms, throwing their professional photo doesn't have to be too over the top. Just make sure there's something there that identifies you. You have a LinkedIn, then a recruiter comes to your school and has seen your LinkedIn before and doesn't even know you from the LinkedIn. Like, also, sometimes recruiter comes and they're like, oh yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn and I'll send you an application, internal invite. You're like, oh, I don't have a LinkedIn. Person's like, oh, okay. Then I don't know. A lot of things can happen from there, but essentially you want to be ready, right? LinkedIn handshake, the third one, Jumpstart, I think it's called, but maybe it's not called Jumpstart anymore. Like I said, show who you are. I mean, computer scientist or software engineer, whatever it is you are, chemical engineer. Uh, this is what I worked on again. Usually LinkedIn is a more verbose version of your resume. Oh, by the way, one point on resume, please keep it on one page, please. One page resume. Okay, cool. Um, Back to this. Show
Okay.
who you are, what
Hey,
makes you.
Ibuku, sorry for interrupting you. So I think we have to continue next week on this.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, it's already 6:34. Does anybody have any question to ask him before we run it up? If you have any question on what he has said, Okay, so I hope we are following us, and I know some of you are in your library or you are in the laboratory. So, and I promise 30 minutes, so we can go back to our work, and just let's make sure that we apply for the internship uh, right now, because if you don't do it now, you cannot be doing it when it is over. You know what I'm saying? So like,